Now, the first dimension in building a sales culture is to look at our orientation towards the market. Are we short term or are we long term oriented? We have to think about that. Now, this is important because if you're short term oriented, then you're wanting that immediate gratification. It's more about activity, things that needs to be done right away to be able to close the sale. If you are a long-term format where we're thinking about long-term success, maybe a 3-year, maybe a 5-year time horizon, well then guess what? Now we really want to be able to work differently with our customer base. So salespeople will react depending on what we tell them. If we're short term oriented and that's what your reward, then guess what? People are going to do activities based on rewarding them on that short term. But if your culture that you're trying to build is more of a long term oriented, then guess what? Now we have a different philosophy. Instead of that immediate sales, that quick one off sale, we're going to have a long term view of what our customers are going to need. Now, this is interesting because it also drives product development, your services, what you start to offer. Over the long term, we want to be able to add more value to our customers. In the short term, we just want that sale, that referral. In a commodity slash retail business, you often find the one off short term mentality. Now, there's nothing wrong with a short term, it's just philosophy and culture. Sometimes that's all that they actually want immediate sales, the one off, and we may never even see that customer ever again. And that is fine for certain markets. But if on other markets, maybe like a B2B scenario, you want to be able to think about a long-term horizon, right? A long-term setup. Because we're not just concerned about that one sale, we're concerned about that lifetime value of that customer. Now, listen to what I just said, right? The lifetime value of a customer. Let's say that in year one, they buy $200 worth of stuff. Now, we're just making this stuff up right now. The second year, they buy another $300 worth of stuff. And then the third year, they buy $500 worth of stuff. Over 3 years, what is $1,000? That's the lifetime value of that customer. On the one-off scenario, maybe they just bought a one-time $100 item. So now how do we orientate ourselves through the market? It's really based on what we want to accomplish. If we want the short-term sale, there it is. Do we want the long-term sale, the long view of business, where we're into this in the long haul, then that's a whole different culture. So here's the first question I want you to ask yourself as a manager. Are you more short-term oriented or are you more long-term oriented? Just ask yourself that questions. Where are you at this very moment? Now, once that registers, we're going to come back to this later on, right? How strongly do you feel about that? So if you chose long term, how strongly do you feel about that? And do your policies coincide with that decision? If you chose the short term, how strong do you actually feel about that? Are all your policies pushing into that directions? We're going to come back to this, but this is one of the first dimensions of things. So I want you to think about it this very moment. Are you thinking about short term or are you thinking about long term? Write it down right now, and we're going to go ahead and continue on to the second dimension. Now, listen, if you're thinking right now at this very moment that, well, Michael, I'm a little bit of mix. I want a short term and a long term strategy created. Well, then what I really want you to do is at this very moment, if you really think about how you are at this very moment, are you really worried about that quick sale at this very moment to keep your company going? Now, just to let you guys know, a lot of companies, when they first start, they just need to make those first sales to be able to get the company going. They just need money to start coming into their company. So if this is where you are, it's perfectly fine to choose which one you're planning to be into. But you have to make a decision at this very moment. Yes, we want to be able to have a short-term strategy and a long-term strategy on anything in business. But what we're trying to do in this video series is talking about the culture, creating culture for your company, and to be able to actually look at that. So I want you to be able to say to yourself, which one are we really leaning towards, to short-term or the long term. So I hope this video helps. We're going to move on to the next training. Keep on watching.